everything that you do in life tends to teach you something, and it forms who you are, and it forms how you're going to be one day in the career that you will eventually end up in. And so I always try to go back to the first work experience that I ever had. And I mean legit work experience where I was getting a real paycheck, because I was one of those kids that started working when I was like 10, and I was, weeding people's driveways in my neighborhood for $2 a pop, and trying to, make as much money in the summer as I could so that I would have some Christmas money. But when I was 12, believe it or not, I got my first job, and I started working at Gosman's Dock in Montauk, Long Island. That's, as I said, my spiritual home is Montauk. I spent my summers out there, and I absolutely love it. It's a fishing town. And Gosman's Dock is a tourist spot where people go and they check out the stores, and they often are buying seafood at one of the restaurants there. And I worked at Gosman's Clam Bar. And I started out my first year, making $3 an hour, emptying garbage cans all around the restaurant. In fact, at the time when I was 12, those garbage cans were taller than I was. And I remember just picking up these garbage cans and emptying them into a dumpster above me, and getting terrible lobster juice spilling all over me. And it was a disgusting job. But it was very hard work. And the first day I did it, I wanted to quit, but I couldn't allow myself to do that. And I decided to persevere and keep working at it. And at the end of the day, I ended up working for Gosman's for over 12 years. So I was literally working at Gosman's Dock from age 12 to 24. And I did all sorts of jobs there. I was a clam shucker, meaning opening clams for them in the kitchen. I used to work on the fry line and cook all of the fried food. I was a dishwasher for them. And another interesting thing I used to do is I used to unload lobster boats. And it was a fascinating job where the boat comes in and they start giving you these giant buckets of lobsters, and you have to weigh them with your hand and figure out which one is 1.25 pounds versus 1.125 pounds versus 2 pounds versus 3 pounds, because they charge different prices for all those things. And it was all very, very hard manual labor, and they were long hours. I would work from like 10 in the morning till 10 at night often. And I did that for 4, 5, 6 days a week for most of my summers for a lot of my childhood. And while I had that job, I spent time working with people from all over the world. I worked with people who immigrated from Ireland. I worked with people who came from Puerto Rico, from South America, from Guyana, from Australia. And as I grew up, I just began to, and I eventually lived and worked with people like that, because once I got into my late teenage years, I was living in employee housing. And I just look back at that, and when I look at my behaviors at my job today and sort of what has helped me succeed in the business world, there is no question for me, one of the things that has helped me succeed has been work ethic, and being just able to know that when I sit down to get something done, it doesn't matter to me how long it's going to take. I'm going to get that thing done, and I'm going to deliver a product that is excellent. And I'm gonna complete it. I'm not gonna deliver a half-assed job. I never delivered a half-assed job, and I think that all stems back from like remembering the times that I had to make sure that every single night at the end of the day cooking at the Clam Bar, we had to clean every single nook and cranny of that place and make sure it was spotless, so that it would be safe and it would be sterile for the next day, and we were keeping a clean kitchen. And that's helped me in so many different business roles, that work ethic. And the second thing I learned was how to work with so many different kinds of people, with so many different kinds of backgrounds. And in particular, living and working with people that came from all over the world, it was such an interesting way to grow up. And for me, I feel like it helped me have an acceptance of different points of views, and just be able to have an interpersonal relationship with different kinds of people at any job that I had. So I found I was very easily able to network with people and help others within my companies where they needed help. I was always willing to pitch in and be a good team player. And however those people were used to operating, whether they were introverts or extroverts, or from one country or from another, or worked in one department or another, I just felt a more of an ease in my interactions with all those people, because I feel like it was a little bit embedded in me from that early start to my work experience. And then when I got out of college, I went to Geneseo. I went to a SUNY school, State University of New York in Geneseo. I actually didn't quite know what I wanted to do, and I accidentally fell. I mean, I had taken marketing classes in college, and I had learned about advertising, and I had learned about marketing, but the media aspect of it was not really well publicized, and so I actually ended up answering an ad in the paper for Excel skills needed, believe it or not, in 1993. And it was for a job in the financial department of a very small media agency called DeWitt Media. And that was my first introduction to a corporate environment. So I got the job. And interestingly, when I was offered the job, I was offered a particular salary. And my first job out of college, and I actually asked if it would be all right if I could ask for a higher salary, which I think the CFO at the time, who I was talking to, almost fell out of his chair. But I said, yeah, well, you know, when I came in and I talked to your head of human resources, I had told them that this was the kind of salary that I was hoping to start at. Do you think you might be able to move it from this to this? And I don't know how many people often do that, but he definitely was surprised that I did. But you know what? He gave it to me. He said, you know what? You're a really good candidate. Yeah, I'll give you that. So right off the bat, I learned that if I asked for something, I might get it. To me, that was a huge learning, because as I grew and as I moved into different roles and moved from one company to another, I learned how to gently and carefully, but in a way that was just collaborative, ask to be paid what I was worth. And I think that's another important thing as you go through your career, to always remember that, because if you don't ask, sometimes it just won't come. Corporations move very fast, they're very large, and they're not always able to think about every single individual inside that company. And for me, I learned really early on the benefit of putting something out there and explaining, making sure that the company knows what you desire, so that they have something to shoot for. Even if they don't give you exactly what you want, at least you gave them a sense of what you wanted. So if they can't meet it, then they might know that you might be disappointed, or they might be thinking about how to get that to you at another time. Again, if you are a valued employee and you're delivering value to them. So at DeWitt Media, this is where I began to learn the value of mentorship. There was a gentleman who ran this company, who owned the company, named Gene DeWitt, who he was a scary guy. He was definitely a very imposing individual, and I watched him scare the heck out of a lot of very senior executives in my company. And you'll find that as you get into the world of business, not everybody is that easy to deal with. But for some reason, as I was coming up in the company, this guy saw value in what I was contributing. I think he felt that I was over-delivering, and he took chances on me. And so often when a job would open up, and in this case, the first example of that would have been in the media, the TV media buying investment role, he would promote me into a position sometimes before I should have been promoted. And he would kind of throw me out there into uncharted territory, and he would see how I would do. And that was sometimes pretty scary. And I had to oftentimes, you know, sort of catch up and learn things. But what I found was, as he kept doing that to me, he was challenging me in a way, and I started to learn that the world of management, of how you think about the people that work with you and for you, part of your job is to get them out of their comfort zone and to put them in positions where they have to perform. And if they don't, it doesn't mean they're not good at it. It just means that they have to learn. And a lot of times you learn more from failing at trying something than you do from succeeding. There are so many examples in the world of business where people will often succeed their way right through a company. And then the minute that person is faced with some adversity, it completely knocks them apart because they've never faced adversity before. what you find in business is when something goes wrong and something doesn't go as planned, it's how you react to that oftentimes will prove more valuable for you and for the company than if nothing went wrong when you did something. Even though it succeeded, if you didn't face any adversity, you might have done a great job and succeeded at that objective, that goal, but it didn't maybe teach you as much as maybe what the bad stuff does. So Gene sort of taught me, and he taught me to rely on my instincts and on, he taught me to trust that in whatever situation I was thrown into, no matter how hard or different than what I was doing yesterday, I had the capability to learn it. So what that allowed me to do was to be able to pursue things that were sometimes not in the specific area of discipline that I was working in on that given day. And I had a comfort level that I had a track record of being put in positions that I didn't know much about, that I could trust that I was going to figure it out. And that gave me a lot of confidence as I was growing into different roles at different media agencies. And I think had a big impact on just the different things I aspired to in the business. So fast forward from 1993 to, I'm going to go all the way to 2008 because I know we don't have a lot of time, but during that 93 to 2008 period, I started in the network TV investment role, which meant that I was working with all of the TV networks to build those plans that I was telling you about and negotiate the deals and bring them back to my clients and show them about how much value we were able to get for their money. And I was doing that in various capacities at different companies. I did that at DeWitt Media, and then DeWitt Media sold and became OptiMedia, where I worked for a gentleman named Bob Flood, who was one of the best managers and another person who would push me and put me in uncomfortable positions and help me learn how to rely on myself. Another company named Zenith, another agency, and this company, some of these companies still exist, even though I'm an old fart. Zenith is still out there, and at Zenith I specifically worked for a very unique mentor, a woman named Peggy Green, and Peggy was someone who was very close to retirement at the time. I came into her company probably in 2005, and I only worked for her for 3 years, but she was one of those managers that she did not sit at a laptop and type and write emails or do spreadsheets. She literally would walk around the floor of the company and just stop at people's desks, pat them on the back, ask them how they're doing, how's your family, how's your sister that you told me about last week, what are you doing for work today? Wow, you're so good at that. Oh, you're the best. And she just sat there and walked around and promoted people all day long. Now, mind you, she had a huge job, and she literally did do that job quite well. And she did write emails. For whatever reason, she tended to write them between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. But she was somebody who was just an incredible people person. And to be honest with you, she taught me something very important, because for most of those jobs I had before her, I was moving up in the ranks and I was starting to manage people, but I was managing people from the perspective of I was teaching them to do what I did when I was in their roles, and then I was kind of doing it with them. I was just making sure they got it done. I was a bit of a taskmaster. And what Peggy taught me was that the real job of a manager, the real job of a person who manages other people, is to actually help them be their best selves, help them advance their careers, and help them get promoted. So I began to take on a different kind of a responsibility working for Peggy, which was I needed to transition my way of doing my job from doing things to helping other people do things. That's a lot of what management is. That was a big thing that I learned in terms of one of the mentors I spent time with.